Good morning.
Welcome, Yvette. And it is actually good evening here, and I'm sure it is a different timing there. So I think it's afternoon, right?
Yes, we're just shy of noon. Yes.
Okay. Welcome to the Women's Economic Forum. We are so happy to have you here. So,
Thank you so much for the invitation.
Hello, Mitalai.
Hello, Sumita. Welcome.
How are you doing?
Doing good.
So nice to see you virtually at last.
Yeah. We just spoke on the phone and.
That's right. Yeah.
So, Yvette, I think Reena Patel is yet to come. So,
okay.
I'm not sure whether she's coming.
Yes, she and I emailed this morning as well. So,
okay.
Yes.
Yeah. So, Mita, this is the session just before yours. There are two people in conversation. So, that is Yvette, and she is the assistant professor and assistant dean, Boston University School of Public Health, USA.
Okay.
Yes.
And
so we are waiting for that session to complete, and then
yes.
So tell me, this is being streamed live on YouTube.
Yes.
Okay.
So Reena Patel is yet to come.
Is that or what?
Yes, Sumita.
Is there a separate link for that, or how does it work?
There are links. Yes.
Oh, okay.
It's streamed live on YouTube and Facebook, and a lot of interest has been generated for this women's economic.
I'm sure.
11 tracks and like 200 speakers in 2 days.
Yeah.
It was a great.
How has the response been? This has started this evening, I think, no?
Yes, it has been pretty good.
So how has been the response so far?
It is pretty good, Sumita.
Okay, wonderful.
So I think since Reena Patel is not there, Yvette, I think please go ahead with your inspiring story.
Okay.
Not here, so I think you can have a solo session and go ahead and inspire the viewers across the globe. Over to you.
Okay. Well, first I just want to start by saying thank you for this generous invitation to be a part of this great conference of women around the world. I will say a little bit about myself. I'm an associate professor of epidemiology at the Boston University School of Public Health. I'm also the assistant dean of diversity and inclusion for the School of Public Health. I've had the great honor, research-wise, to be affiliated with the Sloan Epidemiology Center at Boston University School of Medicine. And in that role, I've been a researcher on a large project of African-American women, the Black Women's Health Study, which has now in its 25th year. This is our 25th anniversary this year. What I can say about myself and my journey is that it has not always been a straight path. It's been a crooked road, but it's always been on the ascent, which is what I try to tell students, that it doesn't have to be a straight shot. But I will say just a few things that I was inspired on. One is, again, having the great honor to study women's health and Black women's health in particular in the United States. As we know, Black women bear a great burden of illness relative to their white peers. And in our project, we've been able to look at various risk factors, including experiences of discrimination and racism, and even neighborhoods where women live as determining or having a major role in determining their health outcomes. Of interest is these are not simply limited to Black women. These are factors that have application worldwide. So women of color in particular will often bear the brunt of poor health within their communities. And more recently, I've been part of a consortium of researchers who are looking at not just African American women and white women, but also women of Southeast Asian descent, and looking at the role of religion and religiosity and spirituality in buffering health outcomes. So we all have a lot to learn from one another. In preparing for today, in talking with Rena in advance, we spoke a lot about how do we harness this moment that we're in globally. So events that began here in the United States have rippled across the globe and have led to populations really exploring and trying to understand how we relate to one another in terms of race, in terms of religion, across with gender. And we have an opportunity, I think, in this moment to decide how we want to shape the future. So in some ways, we have worked separately, and in other ways, we have opportunities to work together. So this is a conference like this, I think, really highlights how we can form ways to work together and move forward in terms of guiding how the globe looks for the next generation, if you will. We have lots of information, both from health and also politics, but certainly as professionals who really help shape the economic fortunes of within the countries that we live. So we choose whether we would like to have unity or division, and I'm in favor of unity. Another thing that Rena and I sort of discussed very briefly, and what we were hoping to talk about together here is that in my own research and in my own sort of lived life, lived experience, my one part of my family, my mother is African American, descendant from, direct descendant from slaves. My father was from the Caribbean, also likely descendant of slaves, but also a descendant of a colonialism system, a colonial hierarchy, which is something that I know we share quite a bit of a history regarding. Yet I have always been one puzzled by how siloed Black Americans and those of Southeast Asian descent have been, although we have this very shared history with of similar oppression. And it's really my hope that as we move into this moment and this new time, that we explore that shared connection and use that as a way to, again, unify, join our skills, join our experiences, and shape the world that is to come for our children and the next generation. So with that, I will say that I feel like I'm rambling a little bit. I will say with my with my personal journey.
You can tell more, David. You have about 5 minutes. You can share more of your personal journey with us.
Okay, sure. How much longer do I have?
You have about 5 minutes.
About 5 minutes? Okay, okay. Yeah, so, you know, I don't know who out there needs to hear this or not, but, you know, I'm a first generation researcher. I am not the first generation in my family to go to college, but I was certainly the first one to go into science, into STEM. And that it brings along its own challenges. So I've had to really learn the ropes, understand the academy, and grow my experience that way. I've been very blessed to have some great mentors, both, you know, within all areas that I've worked and currently. And I would say to those who are up and coming, to really, find great mentors and listen. And also, your mentors may not necessarily be specifically within the area that you're going into. You can learn, there are life mentors, people who teach you how to roll with disappointment and recover and reset. And kind of just sort of keep your moral compass centered. So mentors can come in many, many forms. I would again, as I started out saying, my path has sort of been winding, but when I look back, I realize it's been consistently on the ascent. So no matter what steps you take forward, as long as they're going forward, and even if the incline is, might be very steep or very gradual, that you do eventually get to the places that you wish. So I guess the place that I've gotten to now is that I'm able to study women's health, and particularly Black women's health. And a student pointed out to me once, as I was explaining some of my research, says, "You basically study you." And I said, "Yeah, I do. And that's fantastic," right? And I've had the opportunity and to do that. Lots of people have had the opportunity to study themselves, their fathers, their mothers, their sisters, and now I've had that opportunity to do that. And so with that, I don't know if this is, if I've been enlightening or not, but I again want to thank you so much for the opportunity to have joined you today.
Thank you so much. Thanks for joining us at the Women's Economic Forum. And Women's Economic Forum is honored to award you the iconic Woman Creating a Better World for All award. Congratulations, Yvette.
Thank you so much.
This award will reach you after the conference. Since it is digital, we cannot hand it over to you. And thanks for joining in all the way from across the globe. It is wonderful to have so many global speakers here. And thanks for sharing your journey with us. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Thank you all very much. Bye-bye.
So very good evening to the panelists here. Our next panelist, panel will be Human Capital Utilization, the Economics of Goodness of Diversity. And we have Mr. Vivek Dwivedi, India leader for multinational client group for Mercer India. We have Sabina Ewing, Global Head Pfizer Upjohn Business Technology. Welcome, Sabina. We have Venkatramana, Group President, HR, Landmark Group. Welcome, sir. Sridhar Sarathi, Senior VP, Human Resources, Tata Capital Limited. Welcome.
Thank you.
And Sumita Datta, Executive Director, Corporate Affairs, Steel Authority of India Limited. Impressive panel, and all the viewers are waiting to hear from you. And Mr. Vivek,
Thank you.
Dwivedi, over to you.
Thank you, Meghalai. I mean, it's indeed wonderful. I was reading this research, and I'm sure you all have read that, there's a very long way and even many, many years that the World Economic Forum at Davos says that it's going to take us 100 plus years to get to the parity on gender. But I must say, Meghalai, the kind of work that Women Economic Forum is doing, and this particular session with the way you've digitally connected, the sheer width of this session and the enriching experience bringing us all together, I think we're taking a big leap to shorten that distance that we have. So thanks a lot. And on that note, let me welcome the esteemed panel here. Sabina, thank you so much joining us across the continent and time zones. Welcome to the session. Sumita, welcoming you. Thank you. And
Thank you, Vivek.
Thank you for bringing we were hoping to get the voice of business and marketplace come in through you, and especially keen to hear the sale experiences. And similarly for, Venkat and Sridhar, both your respective experiences. Now, the topic says human capital, the economics of goodness of diversity. So I'm sure the goodness of diversity is well established through most of the sessions that have been ongoing around diversity. But I personally do feel that the economics of it or the business impact of it is still, not as well etched out. And several, our own client work, as well as a lot of interaction with fraternity and leaders like all of you, we've been hearing that the aspect of building true sponsorship and ownership for the diversity agenda amongst business leaders, P&L leaders, has been low because of not so much of clarity and conviction on the economics and the business case of diversity, gender diversity, and the wider diversity and inclusion. And that's where I think I'm quite looking forward to hearing each of your experiences, especially around the business impact, but also keen to hear the journey that your respective organizations have made in deriving business value out of your diversity journeys in the respective organizations. So the order that I would like to take, if we could each take first 2 to 3 minutes to set your opening remarks and also give us some of the points of view that you hold dearly and the strong conviction that you hold based on your experiences. We could go around the table and then give ourselves the last 10 minutes or so to build further on to each other's points and conclude together as a group. In terms of our, if you all allow me, I would propose the order. Let us start with Sumita, and then I would want to go through Sridhar, thereafter Venkat, and give the last word to Sabina, because I wanted a technology expert to sum up how you view the economics and diversity coming together, both from a technology as well as overall business impact perspective. Mm-hmm. So with that, I'm also conscious of the short time frame that I have, given that each of you is carrying a lifetime of experience. So let's get started. Sumita, if I could hand it over to you, please, to take next 3 minutes and share with us the highlights of the SAIL experience on the economics of goodness of diversity. Over to you, please.
Thank you so much, Vivek. Now, a couple of words about myself. I'm an MBA, and I did my MBA after passing out from Lady Shri Ram College in Delhi. And ever since passing out of MBA, I joined SAIL, and I've been sailing with SAIL ever since. It's been almost 31 years now. So steel is basically a man's world. Okay, it is a dry subject, and it's totally a man's world. So when I joined, it was like one of those, 1 in 100 kind of, less than that, in fact, 1,000 ladies who were in this industry. And, but then, slowly, times have changed, and, people have realized the importance of having, gender diversity in such dry industries as well. And, initially it was all about women joining in, soft areas like HR and finance. And typical, you'll find most of the ladies are either in IT or HR. So, but the hardcore areas like marketing and warehousing and logistics, you never find ladies there. But that is where the glass ceiling was broken to quite an extent by me as well, because I held all the jobs which were hitherto held only by men. I was branch manager of Bangalore first for about 7 or 8 years, which was a good time, challenging. And more than that, challenging was branch manager Delhi. It is a hot seat and a bed of thorns. And then I was regional manager operations, which is all about warehouse, and it's dealing with truck drivers and trailer drivers, and managing the labor and IR. And so it was great fun. It was a challenge. So I would just tell one thing from my experience, that if you don't realize that you are a lady, if you don't think like that, then there is really no difference. Even if it's a hard industry like steel, If it is not there in your psyche that, oh, I'm a lady and I need privileges and, I should be dealt with separately. In my career, I never found any difference between me and, my colleagues at all. And even in meetings, always I was the only lady. Any meeting, even now, mostly, even in the higher echelons of, top management, I'm the only lady mostly. And we have another director, of course, now. So, it's never there in the psyche. So I really didn't feel any kind of gender discrimination or diversity. So that's it. We don't think about it at all. That's the way to go. That's the first step.
Very well said, Sumita. And I can see the conviction coming out of, speaking in first person and setting the agenda. So that certainly takes the credibility level of the organization when, brand ambassadors like yourself talk in first person and speak about on behalf of the organization. That really is a very solid credential. Thank you so much.
Indeed. Thank you, Vivek.
Sridhar, coming next to you, I particularly wanted to hear from you what have been your experience in terms of bringing clarity and communication to the business case or the economic side of the goodness of diversity. Sridhar, you're on mute. Can't hear you still.
I'm sorry. Sorry about that. Thank you, Vivek. Interesting to hear what Sumita said. So after joining, after doing my MBA, I had the privilege of joining the Tata Group, and I've been a lifer with the Tata Group for the last 30 years now. I was fortunate enough to be joining a group which actually encouraged diversity. And I had the good opportunity of joining the Taj Group of Hotels, also known as Indian Hotels Company Limited, where actually is the reverse. So you actually see much more of diversity than you would see in, say, a Steel Authority of India or a Tata Steel. So wherever you went, whether it was sales, whether it was guest service, whether it was PR, whether it was Corpcom, whether it was banquets, you always had a lot of colleagues, and there was tremendous diversity. So that was a good beginning for me, and it actually also gave me tremendous insights into, working with a diverse background. For us at the Tata Group, diversity is not restricted alone to gender. In fact, we have a policy with respect to, say, affirmative action, which is inclusion of the underprivileged from the scheduled caste, scheduled tribes, or the recruitment of people with limited abilities, etc. So there's a lot of diversity that's happening within the Tata Group, and we're very clear as to what we need to do to encourage diversity, and more importantly, leverage the diversity. There's always an opportunity for a diverse workforce to capture a greater share of the consumer market, and diverse cultural perspectives also inspire creativity, according to us, drive innovation. Now I'm with the financial services, having been with sales for a longer time, and now with HR for the recent past. There are certain areas which we need to break, and for example, collections as an area. So, or example, sales. We don't see as much diversity as we would like to. So therefore, we are trying to include as many diverse perspectives, so which actually could inspire creativity and also drive innovation. I'm tempted sometimes to speak about equality, diversity, and inclusion, and we normally tend to confuse equality about which is actually about equal opportunities, and diversities, which is about recognizing and respecting the differences in people, and of course inclusion actually, which refers to an individual's experience within the workplace. So there is a moral case. We actually treat all with respect, dignity, and free from discrimination. More importantly, there is a very, very important business case. So which, for example, the wider talent pool that we're able to capture for staffing purposes, or the larger pool of diverse working population that is available to be tapped. Surely there is a lot of value creation. There is no doubt about diversity actually adding tremendous benefits to the business. Profitability, creativity is something that is very, very important, and of course, employee engagement. So there are two or three things before I would like to end. One is for it to be a part of the overall business strategy, which is very important. And also to ensure that it is not a one-time activity. We need to see the overall life cycle, including recruitment, retention, engagement, mentoring, leadership, accountability, etc. So which is very, very important. Lastly, it should not be an HR agenda. It should be seriously seen as something which is driven by the organization. That's important. So in terms of communication, we need to communicate the change very, very seriously. There needs to be a very, very effective plan, and it's not about saying what we're doing, but actually, living up to what we want to do, and ensure that we don't overdo it, but actually communicate the benefits that can be accrued from diversity. So we've actually leveraged diversity, whether it's customers, whether it's the investors, whether it's suppliers, partners, and not restricted alone only to employees. So in short, this is what the journey has been, and I think it's very important for us to have a clear-cut communication, not overdo it at the same time, but actually leverage the diverse workforce that we have.
Makes sense. Very well said, Sridhar. I actually quite liked the continuum of equity, diversity, and inclusion, and bringing the economic nuance of each of the three, and like you said, taking it beyond employees to all your stakeholder groups. I think that's a great segue for anyone who wants to go deeper into the business impact and economics of diversity. Thanks. Venkat, let me come over to you. You've had a fairly long decade plus innings at Landmark Group. Retail is not, in many terms, easy to manage segment when it comes to, given the challenges of nature of business, and on top of that, deriving the economics or the business impact of diversity. So very keen to hear your view. And what are your insights from your experience at Landmark?
Thanks, Vivek. Yes, as you may be aware, Landmark Group is a Dubai-based retail conglomerate, and in India we're more known as Lifestyle Max Home Center. That's how we're known. We are close to about 50,000 employees, of which about 25,000 employees are on our rolls. And we've had a very interesting journey as far as diversity is concerned, because way back in 2009, when I joined them, the organization was very small. It wasn't as big as what it is today. We would have been about 12,000 crores last year, and one of the larger retail companies in the country. And given that context, the diversity ratio, women was about 9%. And as you would all be aware, the mass is at the bottom of the pyramid. They are the frontline, store staff, and their work is very, very different when you compare rest of them. They need to be working in close proximity. They need to be working late hours. So there is also a question of safety for them, which is very, very critical and important. And generally, if you look at it, yes, we needed to make sure that it was a safe place to work. And before POSH Act really came, we really were very stringent if there was any harassment. And that's something which actually drove our, keenness to have more women. And we did have, KPIs of HR to actually move the ratio. That was something which we did. But otherwise, also on the back end, we brought in a lot of women-friendly kind of initiatives, because see, at the end of the day, especially buyers and designers and all that needed to travel length and breadth of the country, and where they stay is very important, because at the end of the day, that is also critical, where they really stay. And also the fact is, so what we did is their accommodation was one level above their male colleagues, so that they at least make sure the allowances are much better, so they make sure that they have better accommodation. Then we had restrictions of them getting back at 7 o'clock in the night. We were very particular about women getting back home from the stores, and these kind of helped. And then we started a crash facility in retail. It's not very common, but we did that long ago, and that helped us actually move in terms of the diversity ratio. And also, if you look at it, the inclusion part, we have a lot of persons with disabilities working with us, so that kind of also brought in, we have close to 600 or 700 of them, hearing and speech impaired, working in our stores. And that definitely helped in terms of, a customer connect also. They started kind of seeing that this organization is concerned for humanity, and that drove, I mean, we've kind of had very, very nice, feedback on, these women working, I mean, these people working with us. So that was something. But definitely, I think moving this has helped us as an organization. At the end of the day, people become more sensitive, and because this is a very customer centric business, and when they can actually, deal with their colleagues in the store very well, then it becomes, easier to deal with, customers also. And we've seen a direct correlation of, engagement levels going up, and the organization definitely being one of the great places to work for almost 8 consecutive years, and in the top in the retail. So that's actually been the a brief story of what, Landmark Group has done on the D&I front, Vivek.
Got it. Very well said. I actually quite like the aspect of the differentiated policy framework. Like you said, the eligibilities and entitlements of gender being at a higher level. Now, that exactly perhaps is the point that Sridhar was trying to make, that, sometimes equity needs to be treated differently than equality. And it's not the same broad brushes for all constituencies. So I think that's a great example. Sabina, let me turn to you for a perspective, both from the business case and the business impact of diversity, but particularly keen to get the perspective of how does a technology leader view this aspect, which is inherently considered more humane and a people aspect. Does technology help us to wrap our arms around this issue any better way than what we would be able to do in only functional HR or people terms?
So first off, thank you very much for the opportunity and the conversation. I'm very appreciative from the Women's Economic Forum for this invitation. I think, Vivek, I've spent the last 25 years in technology, of which about 13 were in consulting, large consulting firms, Arthur Andersen, Bearing Point, and doing work with American Express. And so I have seen, if you will, the challenges that occur. I actually have always been a technologist, unbeknownst to me, because I started programming at the age of 10 when the PC first came out. And so, growing up with it led me to this particular profession. And so what I would say to your last question, I would say there's certainly an opportunity for technology to play a role in, aiding our movement as it relates to equity. But when I think of, for instance, the dimension of technology such as artificial intelligence, what you realize is that it's programmed by human beings. And so the biases and the ways in which human beings think, that gets infiltrated into those technologies, unless you're intentional and you find ways in which you drive out that, those unconscious biases that would naturally be a part of those technologies. But to the topic of the economics of it, right? And the economics of diversity. I've served as Pfizer's chair of the Global Women's Council. And I think it's been really important to reinforce with leaders, as you all have been talking about, around the value of diversity, the impact that it has on the business. I think, one way I'd look at it is the Peterson Institute in 2016 looked at 22,000 public companies in 91 countries. And what they found is that when you have women, in senior positions, there is a direct correlation to profitability, right? That's gross margin and, net margin. And those types of things matter. For us at Pfizer, our leaders have been intentional around making the move in terms of driving more women into, senior positions. For us, it's the vice president level and above. Right. So my CEO, 36% of his leadership team are women. The person who leads all of Pfizer's digital and technology capabilities is a Hispanic woman. The person who leads $40 billion of revenue, the pharmaceutical business, again, a woman. So you also see that, when you look at leadership on boards of directors, it's important to have at least 3. And then you really start to see and reap the benefits because you're bringing in diverse perspectives that can help drive certain improvements. And so 29% of our board are women. You have 4 board members. So we've gone over that 3 number. That's, what the research has definitely shown. I would say, McKinsey did a global study of 1,000 companies in 15 countries. And the companies that were in the quartile, the highest quartile for diversity, were more likely to perform better, right? So they were 25% more likely if they had to perform better if they had gender diverse executive teams, and they were 28% more likely to perform better if they had a diverse board. And so I think those types of numbers, coupled with the 18 report from McKinsey on the power of parity and advancing women's equity, specifically in Asia Pacific, because I was living in Shanghai last year, so I recognize that everywhere in the world is certainly not the same. But what they found is that if, in the case of India, if women's labor force participation was increased by 10%, that would add $770 billion to India's GDP by 2025. So when we talk about the economics of it, it's not just doing good, feeling it's the right thing to do, because you have sisters, mothers, daughters, and you want them to feel like they have a great place in society. But it's really important for us to recognize that there is a direct economic benefit and impact to business for the inclusion of women, especially as you include them through all ranks of an organization.
Very well said that, and I'll make sure that we capture that not only in the macro terms, Sabina, the way you highlighted and very specifically the India numbers, but I'm sure we're all seeing in our respective organizations. Mercer, for instance, given that consulting business lends itself quite well to impact assessment in sheer data terms. So we carried out several studies across different practices, across different geographies, looking at what is the profitability and stickiness with clients index of the teams which are more diverse than not. And consistently that data supports exactly the point that you cited, that the economics of it is, apart from the fact that it's the right thing to do, the sheer economics is so stark that when you look at the evidence-based kind of business case, the writing on the wall is pretty clear for the senior business leaders to take note. And in our next segment, and Meghalai just told me that we have time till 10:20, so we've got another 22 minutes to go. So let me just go around again, but this time want to focus on what's been your experience with the sponsors of D&I in your organization. And since all of you are already at that CXO level, when you look at your respective peer groups in your respective boardrooms and staff meetings, what are some of the more positive case examples that you see? Can you share with us what does the makeup and role modeling of a great sponsor of business case of diversity look like? So Samita, coming back to you, let's say in sale context, what has been your experience with top management leadership, senior stakeholders in actively taking up that sponsorship of driving both the economics and the goodness of diversity? Sumita, you're on mute.
So Vivek, SAIL is, though it's a Maharatna public sector, it's a very conservative organization. Okay. So from the beginning, since there were very few ladies, having a lady working under you was always a pariah for most of the people, They used to prefer not having a lady under them. Somehow they would be better off having guys working with them, and definitely reporting for ladies out of question. Even now, let me tell you, You know, I mean, there are so many people who feel, oh, you have a lady boss. You know, I'm sure that is, the general feeling. But nevertheless, so that is the kind of working environment which started. But slowly, as I mentioned, that the narrative changed. Because with more and more ladies joining, and then they saw the efficiency of the ladies, which actually was true. It was demonstrated, the efficiency, the sincerity with which the ladies used to work. I mean, that made a huge lot of difference. And so more and more ladies joined, and it was encouraged. So slowly they were very good with numbers. They were very sincere. They were more, committed. So all those kind of factors, it went a huge way in, encouraging the people to have ladies working with them. Of course, we always have black sheep. There will be some ladies who typically, oh, I have a domestic problem. I have to go early and I won't leave. Those are the people who actually bring disgrace to the rest of the ladies, I would say. But nevertheless, so that is how it grew. And now it has come to a stage where we have one director, functional director on our board, who is a lady. And let me tell you, ever since she's come, she's leading the marketing team, and she's not only launched a lot of branded products and, re-energized the retail sector. Our sales have actually grown in spite of these days being Corona times and the economy is down and there's no infrastructure projects. Our sales, even we've just reported the June sales, the last quarter sales, and there's been a growth which is phenomenal. So that has been the trend. Now the thinking is totally different, and they would love to have a lady in their group, in their teams, because of all the added benefits which the ladies bring along with them. So that has been a great change in narrative over a period of years.
Got it. Sridhar, what's been your experience in terms of the CXO and, the call them executive committees, management committees? Oftentimes what we've seen is A, the representation itself is a challenge. B, where the representation is secured, the acceptance is a challenge. There's still that struggle of whether you are included and whether you belong. Do conversations suddenly go silent as the lady walks into the boardroom? So what is good role modeling at a CXO / sponsors level for you, both from Indian Hotels as well as now at Tata Capital perspective?
Well, so I'll speak with respect to Tata Capital because I work with Tata Capital at the moment. So being a young financial services company, we've definitely had our own advantages. And it's very heartening to note that many of our heads of businesses are actually women. And whether it's the chief ethics officer, whether it's the head of leasing, whether it's head legal, whether it's head credit, so we have a diverse leadership, women leadership at in the leadership positions, and I think that's heartening. That's a positive indicator, and I'm calling it a positive indicator because of the fact that it's not only about talking, it's also about walk the talk. And I always speak about felt leadership. It's about the behaviors that we as leaders exhibit within the organization. So it's not about saying that we'll have diversity within the organization, but it's actually not shown in terms of results. So we've actually also consciously, as a part of a business strategy, ensured that diversity is an integral element of the same. So whether it's an expansion plan, whether it's actually recruitment of new people, there is always diversity. And in fact, apart from if they're from different communities or underprivileged communities, we actually also encourage recruiters or our recruiting agencies to actually get a better, if I may say, a commission which we give them to get people from diverse communities, because it's important for us to have the diversity. I was actually reading a good article which actually says that companies which have more diverse leadership teams report higher innovation revenues, and that's actually a fact. Because I also I've actually witnessed women in leadership roles also have the ability to talk to the point, to have a very clear viewpoint, and therefore it's very straight. what we need to do at the CXO levels is to remove biases, and we've been doing that. Normally, there are a lot of biases that we tend to associate, saying that somebody cannot handle sales because of a family or because they're expecting. So I think we're removing those biases by actually appointing a lot of on merit. It's not because of position or reservation. It's actually on merit, and that's very, very heartening on that. There are a lot of sensitization that we've done, and sensitization across the organization and across all our partners also. For example, even across the partners in terms of diversity, if a supplier is from a particular affirmative action community, or if he comes from an underprivileged community, etc., we actually tend to give them a lower rate of interest, so to encourage, to support them. If there are women entrepreneurs, we actually support them, because these are ways that we could actually show in terms of inclusivity. It's not only about walking the talk, etc. So another example is, because I also handle corporate social responsibility, we've actually said to our partners that when they mobilize the workforce for skilling, at least a minimum of 30% should be women candidates. If we don't get those mobilized, those women candidates or young girls, then we will not have women in the workforce. So we continue to go into rural places, only get men, then it's a challenge for us. We need the diverse workforce because of the ability to think differently, and diverse workforces actually are more productive, more efficient, if I may say so. And in terms of processes, we've seen a lot of improvement in terms of tax, guest service, customer service. All these have shown tremendous improvements. Of course, we've been a Gallup Great Workplace Award globally, and our scores have been high. We've actually embarked on a happiness journey, happiness index, and this diverse workforce, especially the women, they actually make us think a lot in terms of policies, etc., which actually not only help a particular section, but it actually helps the entire organization in terms of growth. So there's a big evaluation and learning that we've been continuously doing. To put it short, we've been leading from the front. The leaders, led by the managing director and CEO, have ensured that in leadership. In fact, the leadership has much more women in leadership roles in the company and the mid management. So there is an opportunity for us to strengthen it further. And I think that's good, because once you admit there's an opportunity, there's always a scope for getting much more diverse workforce. So we've consciously communicated, appointed agents of change, champions, diversity champions, to actually push the agenda of diversity and inclusion within Tata Capital. And we're at a healthy rate today. There's always a scope for improvement, and we're doing that with the help of policies, etc.
I particularly like the metric that you talked about, share of innovation-driven revenue.
Yeah.
I think that's a very good, I would say, level 3, not even level 2 step to take forward the discussion on the economics of it. Thank you, Sridhar. Venkat, you've worked with the top team of large organizations like Landmark, and now you do continue to act as a coach and confidant of the leadership team as well. In your view, what does a good economic sponsor of diversity look like? What is the role modeling persona and behavior? And Sabina, I would have pretty much the same ask from you as well. Very keen to hear your experiences from that perspective. But first, Venkat, to you.
Yeah, Vivek. Actually, if you look at it, for us, our chairperson is a lady, and who runs this business out of Dubai, the owner. And generally, if you look at our leadership team, we have close to about 30% women, and more focused towards areas like women's wear, kids wear, buying. Those categories are mostly women. And HR also, we have a large women population, because I've been a propagandist of women in HR. I always feel women make better HR managers, is what I always say. And we have more than a 50% women in HR today. But then if I look back at our store leadership, we have challenges, because our stores need to remain closed late in the evenings, so for them to actually stay on with their family commitments and things like that, it becomes very difficult. But we are trying to see how to enable them, bring them on shares, and see how we can increase store leadership, women there at the store leadership. That's something which you're working at, because otherwise what happens after a level, it gets tapered off. They don't want to look beyond a certain level to get on to become a manager of a store. bestow because the responsibilities are very different. And so given that, I think today we are having, I mean, our reviews, definitely management reviews, D&I is one of the MIS which a lot of focus and attention is given. So we are trying to see how we can increase, and that's how we kind of increased whatever we've done. We will continue to do that because the top leaderships, definitely their patronage is there, to make sure that we kind of grow to become an organization sensitive to women. Because today, at the end of it, for us, customer service and customer centricity is, it's what our business is all about. So given that context, I think women definitely play a very important role, and we are trying to increase that diverse ratio as much as possible. So that's what we've been doing, Vivek.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Sabina, given the size and scale and the complexity of large global organization like Pfizer and the previous organizations that you worked for, what does a good sponsor of economics and business case of D&I look like? Can you cite some case examples for us in this long journey?
Yeah, so I would say that the word I would use is intentional. I think a really good sponsor is intentional. It's some of what Sridhar had talked about as it relates to the incentives that they use with their vendors, right? It is that, and I think it's some of what Sumita talked about, which is when you have those positive experiences over time, being able to take that those experiences, similar to what Venkat was talking about as well, where you take those positive experiences and you build off of it, and it removes some of the things that may be biases that people may have had in the past. But I'll give you a specific example. So I'm a CIO today, right? The Chief Information Officer for the Upjohn business, because my sponsorship came from Pfizer's enterprise CIO, right? More than 10 years ago, working on a program, though we knew each other sort of, from just general experience, and working successfully on a program, that allowed him to tap me on the shoulder to become first his chief of staff. And I did that with him for, really massive programs, driving $1 billion out of cost in our technology organization over 3 years. Then similarly, being able to lead our technology organization for 2 of our units, specialty care and oncology, and then eventually the vaccines and oncology business, and then covering off on all of the corporate functions and business services for all of Pfizer globally. But he was intentional. Right? He was intentional in making sure that not only he selected women, strong women, because at the end of the day in business, every participant has to be able to perform. You have to be able to deliver exceptional results, right? I think it's to Sridhar's point about merit. And so coming in and leveraging those capabilities, coupling that with a leader who recognizes talent and sees past the gender of the talent, but to the capabilities of the talent. And then also, I would say, having passionate people about it. Whether it's male leaders who are passionate about it or women who get into leadership positions and decide to help pull more women into leadership programs to mentor them, and then to do what you talk about, which is the sponsorship, which is using your equity within the company to advance others. Another example I think of is in my tenure as the chair of the Global Women's Council, we had a colleague, her name is Rajini Shriman, and she was such a passionate HR leader for the women in India, in our manufacturing sites. That the passion that someone brings also brings along some of the other leaders. And I found through the years is as leaders who have daughters and they want to see their daughters flourish, they've also opened up their mindsets about how the workforce should look and what women are capable of doing and what they want, aspire for the enterprise. So when you look at the traits of a leader, it's someone who's empathetic, an empathetic listener, someone who is intentional in how they're going to include women, because I think that was a point, Vivek, you mentioned, because once you start including people and they have a sense of belonging, then you unleash the full potential of their capabilities. And I think that's really a part of leaders driving the inclusion and diversity in their enterprise.
Makes sense. And that aspect of being intentional about it, I think gives us the uh, path forward, that there needs to be a certain engineered effort to make fast strides. And going back to Sridhar's point of seeing how diversity brings the innovation quotient. I mean, look around it and look at this digital forum that the Women Economic Forum team had created.
Yeah.
What brilliant case example of innovation and bringing a set of diversity along. And I was looking at not only our panel, but the panels which are going in other sessions as well. And I was really felt very happy with the thoughtfulness of the diversity of each and every panel that you see in this session. And look around here. I mean, Sumita coming from the marketing background, Sabina, you bringing the technology flavor, Sridhar and Venkat coming from the people side of business, CSR, corporate social responsibility, and then my own experience of consulting. I think it's a very good case example and step in the right direction that they have taken. I now want to make use of the last 3.5 minutes that we have in a rapid fire mode. And I'm going to prop up one question where I am looking for one word or maybe a one sentence answer from each of you. Is that okay? Can we keep it a good fun ending?
Yes.
All right. And
Absolutely.
let me start and come back to you, Sumita. What when you think of your own personal agenda going forward, what you want to do to further the cause and mission of diversity in your organization, what's the top of the mind one word or one action step that you think for yourself?
Well, Vivek, an equal world is an enable world. I strongly believe in that. So I feel that opportunities must be created for everyone without any gender discriminations. As they say, I mean, equality begets quality. So I think we have to become more inclusive about having a gender parity. And in that, I think we all have to make a change in our social fabric also. In India, it starts from the social fabric, this gender parity, gender bias. Frankly, it starts from the social fabric. It's our homes. In our homes, we have disparities,
Sure.
and that has to change. So that is something, bringing up my 2 children absolutely, without any gender biases. That is where the beginning of each mother. So that is something which we have to take it forward. And I would encourage that. And that goes for me, my whoever is in touch with me, even in my workplace. And in terms of participation and performance, I would definitely see that, I bring about more equality and a participative society. And I think it's time we should start celebrating the sheroes, not the heroes, but the sheroes.
Very well said.
Well
And
said,
I
well
think
said.
you've touched upon a very important point which Sabina previously touched upon about the social fabric. And Sabina, you mentioned about those leaders who are also fathers of daughters and therefore have personal investment into that agenda. But I think this is a very important aspect. And from an India perspective, in fact, we in Mercer did the first large benchmarking exercise in India, and there were 2 social factors that stood out. Sumita, particularly bringing this point. The aspects were the 2 religions of India. One is cricket, the other being Bollywood. And there is now research which is showing that in India, in last 2 years, the Indian women cricket team's visibility and fanfare has grown like never before vis-a-vis the male Indian team, which we have always loved,
Very
right?
correct.
But the Indian women cricket team is a new phenomena, step in the right direction. And similarly, the kind of sensitive treatment of subjects in our Bollywood movies on the aspect of women and their considerations, that again in last 18 months, I mean, starting from Pink to the kind of movies that we've seen, a lot of serious sensitive and yet viable commercial narrative has come into the Bollywood. So I think very important point of social fabric being raised there. Sridhar, let me come back to you.
Yeah.
What's
So,
your personal call for action?
well, we have a value, the Tata Group, which is responsibility. So we have to be responsible employers, responsible corporate citizens. That's one. I'm tempted to quote Stephen Covey when he says that the strength lies in differences, not in similarities. And I think that says it all in terms of diversity. So it's
Brilliant.
important for us to have.
I think that's a master statement we all could take to. Venkat, coming back to you quickly.
No, Sridhar talking about values. So for us also values are on top of our mind. For us, we call it I lead, which is basically lead is listen, empathize, adapt, and deliver with integrity. So I think empathizing becomes very critical. And also in terms of sensitizing, because at the end of the day, discrimination is not, you can't, it's not blanket. It's specific to some leaders, some managers who kind of tend to be that way, and how you can sensitize them, empathize them, and have role models
I
within
see
the organization.
Megalai is back to remind us of the time running out. Sabina, last one word answer from your side and we call it a wraps.
Impact, having a legacy of actual impact to make a difference while we're here on this planet.
Megalai, impact is the final, last word that this panel wants to hand you over back with. Thank you.
I think this Women's Economic Forum has created an impact already. We've been working on this for like 2.5 months, and the first time digital conference with so many tracks. And I agree with all of you that there should be the diversity in the workplace. So many important points have been put forward, and time is short. I'm sorry, I cannot give you more time. But before we close, I'd like to announce the awards. The Women's Economic Forum is very happy to award the esteemed panel members here with the Iconic Leader Creating a Better World Award for Mr. Vivek, Sabina Ewing, Venkatramana, Sridhar Sarathi, and Sumita Datta. Congratulations, all of you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
For coming in and spending your valuable time and sharing your inspiring stories with all of us.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank
Pleasure.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Wonderful. Thank you. Wonderful
Thank you.
connecting with all of you.
Take
Thank you.
care. Have a
Thank
bye.
you.
Good
Bye.
night. See you. Bye.